God can't be real because why would my life be this way? Why would I be in so much pain? Why would I be experiencing like all these awful things if God was real? Screw it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm asking Satan.
God, if you're real, if this is real, then give me a sign, because I haven't had conclusive evidence yet.
Yeah, we used to make fun. We made fun of the Bible. We had running jokes about Jesus was just a schizophrenic and like how crazy everybody else was for believing. It was on. And I have watched him like verbally slaughter people to the depths of their soul over how God was bullshit.
Yeah.
Like that was our belief level at one point in time. And we didn't grow up in the church. We didn't grow up with any type of like, not a whole lot of influence about like God, things like that.
No, like when I grew up, like my experience with church and with God was, as a kid, my mother said, like, hey, the neighbors go to church, and if you want to like go to church with them, you can. So I went like, a couple of times when I was a young kid with the neighbor, and I lived in like a predominantly African American neighborhood, and I had it was a good experience, but it's not like I like believed or anything. I went for arts and crafts and stuff, and the potluck. I went a couple of times as a kid. That was my experience with church. And then my other experience with church was one time my mom asked me if I believed in God, and I said no. And that was really the end of the conversation. She was like, okay, cool. And then I also remember like being a kid outside with my mom while she was like gardening, planting flowers in the flower beds. And the Jehovah's Witnesses were coming down the driveway. And mom was like, hurry, hide behind the house so they don't see us, so we wouldn't get talked to by the Jehovah's Witnesses. So that was my experience growing up with religion and church and Christianity. And there was definitely no emphasis in becoming a Christian or anything like that.
I still to this day see them out doing that. So I don't know, is this like a big thing everywhere? Like is it everywhere, or is it more prominent here?
Even when I moved back to West Virginia, she lived at my apartment for a little while, and I worked night shifts. And like I slept during the day. And one time, Jehovah's Witnesses knocked on my apartment door in the middle of the day, rang the doorbell, and I woke up and I heard Mindy at the door telling them, like, you all better go, leave here, and never come back, and don't ring that doorbell again, because literally, if you wake up my brother, he will murder you. Like, he's going to kill you if you wake him up.
They never came back.
I mean, they did it in Maryland. When I was working at Johns Hopkins, I was walking out to my car one morning, and like they ambushed me in the parking lot, handing me pamphlets about Jehovah's Witnesses. And it was kind of funny though, because I took their pamphlets, and then I got into my car, and they were like about marriage and like homosexuality. And it was like, wow, like not only did I just work 12 hours at night in the emergency room, I got ambushed in the parking lot, and they knew exactly what pamphlets to hand me to, just
tell you what person you were.
to outright shame me.
And like I when I went on my journey, I was very open because I didn't want to just accept whatever someone told me or whatever a church told me. So for a very, very long time, I was using the internet. I was buying different Bibles. I mean, I've got some very expensive Bibles. I've got all different kinds.
I also have several
Greek translations
versions of them.
Right. And then we even explored other stuff. But anyway, like we just explored everything. So it wasn't just like, this is it. Like, no, we looked at everything to see like what was logical, what seemed the most realistic, not just what the most of the world was saying.
Yeah, I mean, we had a journey like with spiritualism and mysticism and like
witchcraft.
Yeah, like trying to figure out, like, is any of this legitimate? Like, if there is any of it that's legitimate, like what works best with our life? And like, yeah. And then, we went back to periods of atheism. Like, okay, it's all bullshit. None of this worked for us,
Yeah.
so it's all bullshit. None of this is real. And yeah, like you had a period where you were like pretty open to Christianity for a little while, and then kind of like lost it and
Yeah.
was like not open to it. And then like during that period when you were like open to Christianity, I was like super like gung-ho atheist. And we just were never on the same page at the same time either. And
Okay, too. Like, we never,
yeah, I mean,
we voiced our opinions
yeah,
at the time of whatever, so that was fine. But, we were both back and forth struggling through what to believe for many years. And like, as a teenager, I can't say I was a Satanist, but I was so miserable in life throughout like childhood and into my teenage years that I firmly, like, the few times I had heard about God, I was so upset with him that I was like, you know, God can't be real, because why would my life be this way? Why would I be in so much pain? Why would I be experiencing like all these awful things if God was real? And then it was like, well, okay, even if he is real, why would I want anything to do with a God in control of everything that has put me in this life and I have to live like this? Like, this isn't fun. This isn't fair. This isn't a joke. This is a big deal. Like, this isn't okay for him to do. I never forget when I was just like, screw it. I'm done.
yeah,
I'm asking Satan. And I would pray to Satan. I would go outside in the middle of the night and argue and yell and beg at the sky and tell God that I hated him. And I would basically tell him like a lot of few choice words. And I would beg and barter to make deals with Satan so I could stop being in so much like mental and emotional pain and anguish and all of the things that I was experiencing, had experienced. So I don't know if I would necessarily call that Satanism. Like, I did check a lot.
I certainly would.
Library book out.
I mean, if you're praying to him, I certainly would
But
would say, yeah.
I wasn't like
I mean,
the stuff you
it was
hear today,
idolatry, certainly.
stuff you hear today about Satanism, and they explain like all the occult and the levels, and like there was no like group or anything like that I went to. So yes and no,
Yeah.
because I think there's this idea of what Satanism is now, especially with all the uncovering of all the corrupt government. But, it can be and can start like that way. Like, it's not necessarily, not everybody is seeking Satanism. Some people are seeking it because they're in so much pain
Yeah.
and confusion, and they just need the pain to stop. So if they're trying to figure out who's in control and who's going to help you, and they don't feel like they don't know God, or they don't see it coming from God, you're willing to try anything.
I think I had a similar experience. Like, I mean, I never outright prayed to Satan.
Oh, I did.
But I mean, mainly because I just didn't see any value in prayer. And I mean, I really like had the same experience. Like, well, if there is a God, then he's either not truly loving God because there's pain and suffering in the world, or he's not omnipotent. He is not all powerful or all knowing, because he's not omniscient and omnipotent if he's all loving. And if he is omnipotent and omniscient, then he is not all loving. So I was thinking that, like, from a philosophical standpoint, just could not be. I moved back to Maryland after nursing school, and I was 19 years old. And I was starting my career, as an ER nurse at the time. My first job, experiencing all this pain and suffering. And I was lonely. Like, I had moved to Baltimore. Like, I didn't really have any friends because I had moved away from Baltimore when I was starting high school. So all of the friends I made in high school were back in West Virginia. I went to college in West Virginia. All my friends were here. And I didn't really have any. I had my friends in Maryland, which was really just my friend Wilton, who was religious. When I moved back, like, my childhood friend Wilton, and that was like pretty much I mean, I had some other friends that I had in, like, elementary and middle school that were still around there, but I was lonely, and then I was going through it, kind of struggling with coming out of the closet and, like, figuring out who I am, and, like, it was a tough time. So, anyway,
And
I
I think that was the
thought
only period in time where we weren't like that
yeah.
was like our only gap. We follow, we just go. If one person's moving, the other
Yeah. And so we were apart, like, and yeah, so it was just me. And I wanted to feel a sense of community and like belonging. So I started going to church with my friend Wilton. His parents had a church. They were, pastors, and growing up, they were, like parents, like second parents to me too, but I just didn't do the church thing. So I started going to their church on Sundays, and I wanted so badly to believe and like feel it. And I tried for a while, and then I was like,
pretty much memorized the entire Bible.
I just couldn't.
So it was
Yeah,
like
no.
like when he
And I gave
dug
testimony in
in.
church, and like I like prayed and I participated, and I really wanted to, have this like overwhelming feeling that like this was for me and like this was real, and I just didn't. I didn't have that was not my conversion moment.
Because you must fit the
And so my friend Wilton gave me a book at the time. It was Lee Strobel's A Case for Faith. And I was like, okay, I'll read it, because he obviously, I think, could tell that I was struggling with like having faith and having these questions. And I read like the first couple of pages of the book, and Lee was talking about his, being an atheist, and like the same thing that I thought, like, if God is a loving God, like the Bible tells us, then there's no possible way that he can be omniscient and omnipotent. So it's a lie. It's dead on its foundation. So anyway, so Lee was saying like the same things I thought. And I closed the book then, and I put it on my bookshelf, and I was like, case closed. He just said everything he needed to say in the first 2 pages of this book. Like, how was this supposed to help me? And then I stopped going to church and stopped reading the Bible. And I was like, obviously this is not working. Like, this can't be real. And I went on for, all of my 20s, years and years being, an atheist. And while she was experiencing Christianity also. And then we both kind of fell back into this kind of atheism. And
kind of went a little agnostic for after
maybe. I don't know if I was really open to the idea that there could be a God.
Exploration phase.
Yeah. I guess, okay, maybe. Tomato, tomato.
Or at least we bought books on it.
Tomato, tomato. Okay, so fast forward 10 years, and I moved back to West Virginia, like I finished grad school, and, we're back in West Virginia. And I had my own house. I was doing good. I was successful, happy in life. Nothing really bad was going on in my life. So like I had no need for religion. Like nothing was driving me toward religion at the time. And for some reason, I was like bored one day, and I was in my office in my house, and looking at the bookshelf, and that A Case for Faith by Lee Strobel was on my bookshelf. I had kept it for those 10 years, like, because I just never got rid of any books. And I picked it up, and I started reading it, like, really for no reason. And I read the whole thing, and I was like, there were compelling points in this book. Like, I truly do think that he made a good case for this. And so then I read a couple more of his books, and I thought, wow, okay. So I was starting to open up to the idea, like, maybe me being very narrow-minded is like holding me back. And so then Mindy was going through, I had a couple friends that were going through, like very, very rough times. Like Mindy was going through a rough time. Her fiance had committed suicide. And so she was having like a big crisis in life, and helpless, hopeless, didn't have a will to live. And our other really good friend was like really struggling with alcoholism, and also having like a crisis, life crisis. And
she even had that accident and died.
Yeah.
Back to life.
Yeah. So
these were serious life situations for both of us.
So she was going through a life crisis, and our other friend was like suffering from alcoholism, had multiple car accidents, like her husband from Africa that
Oh,
she had married was like cheating on her with his
oh,
ex-wife,
another one.
married to another woman, and like,
Oh, yeah.
so they're like both having like some of the hardest times like people can have in their life. And me at the time, hadn't really had anything going on, but I was kind of like open to faith at that point because I had been reading those books, but I hadn't, committed my life to Christ. I wouldn't have called myself a Christian, nothing like that. But I was like trying to be a source of strength for them and like encourage them and like try to pull them both together, like especially Mindy, like because she was really worrying me. Like I thought she was gonna, also self-expire and could pull them out of that. Like nothing I was saying was going to be able to pull them out of that. So, and I was kind of struggling with the same thing, like obviously not to the extent that she was because, she was in love with this man and, engaged to marry and had just bought a house with him. So like obviously like I was not feeling the same grief that she was feeling at all. But I was feeling some grief for him because like he was genuinely like a great person.
Yeah.
And like would help anyone, would give you the shirt off of his back
And
genuinely.
I know everybody says that one.
Everyone
No,
says that, but he
no.
he legitimately like genuinely was like loved everybody, would talk to anybody, would hang
Not hurt.
would help anybody
Rescue
very
people,
very
people,
much, and like just genuinely wanted to be your friend and like everyone's friend, like did not harbor hatred toward anybody, like a way more Christ-like person than I could ever be, like way closer to Jesus than I
And he wasn't even a Christian.
could ever want to be. Okay.
But as far as fruits of the spirit,
Right. He bared like golden fruit. Okay. Like, and before this happened, before he did this, he had like showed up at my house. Like I got off of work and like went in the house and actually like went into the half bathroom off the kitchen to like pee. And then I hear someone in my house while I'm in the bathroom. And when I walk out, he's like standing in my house, like hadn't told me he was coming, nothing, just like, and I think their power was out. And it was cold. It was like winter. The power was out. And so he came to my house because they had lived with me in that house before, buying their house. And I was just kind of in a funky mood. Like I had just worked. I was just kind of irritable. And I wasn't like outright mean to him, but like I wasn't welcoming or being a hospitable host to him, because I was just kind of irritated that he just like showed up out of nowhere to my house with no announcement. And like I came home from work. I had worked for 12 or 16 hours. I had a headache. I didn't feel good. I wanted to go to sleep. I had a sink full of dishes. So I was like at the sink washing up the dishes that were in the sink and, like loading the dishwasher. And he's like trying to talk to me. And I just like, am hardly responding. I'm just like, yeah, okay. And he's like trying to invite me to Thanksgiving dinner, like at their house, and like, just trying to like be friendly. And he's like, and I just like, I don't feel good. I have a headache. I'm gonna go to bed. So like I went upstairs. I didn't tell him he had to leave my house or anything. But I just wasn't engaging in the conversation. It was kind of cold and callous, but I wasn't like outwardly rude to him. And, he was welcome to, sit downstairs or whatever, or watch TV, but like I was going to lay down. And then, I think, she had reached out to him and like, what are you doing? Like, the cats are at the house. Like,
I think I was at work.
yeah, you were at work and you were like, you need to get home and be there for like when the power comes on and like all this stuff. So he left. And then it was like I hadn't really talked to him, and shortly after that, this event happened, and it was like this big surprise to all of us. And, then she's struggling, and I just kind of felt awful because I was like, what if I was more hospitable to him and had a conversation with him? Like, what if he was there and he was trying to, you know, open up to me and like tell me what was going on with him mentally at the time? And like, what if this he was trying to ask for help from me because he knew, I have patients and I work with mental health patients and I treat psychiatric problems and like, what if he was trying to come to me and like, he was trying to have a conversation and then was going to open up to me about what was going on. And I didn't give him the opportunity to do that, or what if that like pushed him over the edge? Like, I have nobody's in my corner. No one's fighting with me. No one's there for me. And like, what if what I did or didn't do contributed to that or pushed him that way? And, now looking back at it and having prayed on it, I have to forgive myself for that. And, I hope that what I did wasn't, a factor there, but it hit me hard. And like I said, not as hard as her. Like, I could not be experiencing what she was experiencing, but I had guilt, I had shame and remorse. And, if I could go back and do it again, I would have just listened to him and welcomed him and, maybe he would have opened up to me, maybe not. And maybe that wasn't the intent. Maybe he just did lose power and was cold and wanted a place to come hang out until, she got home. But so anyway, I was driving. I worked between multiple hospitals and I was driving from one hospital to the next hospital, and it's about, like a 40-minute drive, and it was snowing, it was winter, the interstate was empty.
It was like one of the worst winters we'd had.
Yeah, there was nobody on the interstate. Like, it was literally just me trying to get to the other hospital. I hadn't seen a car like probably the whole time I was driving between the hospitals. Like, there was a state of emergency. No one was supposed to be on the roads, but I had to go see patients. And I had in one of Lee Strobel's books, I think it was, one of the people he interviewed was like, if you really have doubts in God, like, just pray, just plead to God and tell God to give you a sign. And God will. And I was like, all right, bet. Like, so I was like crying, driving, like struggling. And I said, you know what, God, if you're real, if this is real, then give me a sign, because I haven't had conclusive evidence yet. Like, and it's kind of funny looking back at it because like God already knew me so well and God knew my heart so well that he knew me being a very analytical, skeptical person. Unless he made his sign as obvious and as obnoxious as it could be, I would explain it away as a coincidence, as something else. God knew that. So God gave me the most obnoxious sign. So out of nowhere, right? There's nobody else on the interstate. Like, literally, it's snow covered. There's no other cars. I haven't seen another car.
I'm pretty sure it was a state of emergency.
It was. And I'm not kidding when I say out of nowhere, a Ford Escape appears in front of my car. Like, somehow this Ford Escape that was not there on the interstate just appears in front of my vehicle. And it's a white Ford Escape, and the back window of the SUV had a huge, like glass decal sign that said, "But God." It was green, lime green with bold writing, and it said, "But God," with an exclamation point. And like, within 1 second of me saying, "Give me a sign, God," he gave me a sign. He knew, like, this guy's dumb. He's skeptical. Like, if I, send him a vehicle with a Jesus fish on the back of it, he's going to be like, yeah, okay. If I send him 3 wooden crosses on the side of the road, he's going to be like, yeah, whatever. But no, I'm going to put this freaking Ford Escape in front of this kid that says, "But God," real big all over the whole back glass of the vehicle. And I just looked up and I kind of laughed and I said, "All right, God, I'm yours. Like, I told you, I'm yours if you will give me a sign." And you gave me the most obvious, obnoxious sign that you could. Like, you definitely know me for sure. And from that day on, I've committed my life to Jesus Christ, and that's how I came here. And I think, now looking back at it, like, God's planted this seed before I accepted him, before I accepted Jesus. Jesus planted a seed, and it was like perfect timing, because my coming to faith, me being reborn, was the strength and was the foundation that she needed and that our other friend needed to pull them through that situation. And then they both came to faith too. And that was what got us all through.
Yeah.
That saved our lives. And, it was just that book that 10 years had sat on my bookshelf and I had not read, and I was not open to reading. And I think, that day when I was in my office, God knew what was coming, obviously, and, nudged me to read that and knew that that was going to be the seed that I needed to open up my mind and my heart. And then that driving force, the kind of the nail in the cross, so to speak, was, a devastating tragedy that, led me to fighting with God and asking God to reveal himself to me.
Yeah, and I think from all of it, like, I'll never forget it because I think of that, like, that moment. Like, we all have those moments. We've just had a normal day. We don't want to be bothered. Like, we just want to go to bed or whatever it is. Like, that's just normal life for everybody. But when you have something like that happen, it sticks with you. Like,
Yeah.
you think about every little thing, intentional or unintentional. And like, even to this day, like, if I'm separating from someone important to me, like just going somewhere, like in my head, at some point, there's always like a thought of like just trying to remember I tell people like I love them, things like
Yeah, like
that.
what if this is our last conversation? Like what if this is our last interaction with each other?
Yeah.
Like how do I want to leave this moment?
Yeah.
I think about that too. Like, I don't want people, like couples, they say don't go to bed mad, like reconcile, forgive each other before you go to bed. Like don't go to sleep angry.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I try to do with every encounter and every interaction in my life, because I don't know what's going on in that person's life at the time. And like, he didn't know what was going on in my mind, but I know what I was thinking, and I know I was irritated and frustrated at that moment. And like, I don't know, I didn't say that to him, but like, I mean, you can pick up on people's body language and like if they're tense and like irritated and not engaging in conversation. So like, I'm sure he picked up on that. And like, I don't know what his intention was that day, and we'll never know. None of us will ever know, if that could have made any difference. But
I don't know, 'cause I had the same question with myself about just not even like even just like the time leading up to it, because he had never once said that that was what he was thinking about or that anything like that was going on. He was very silent about it.
yeah,
And, I mean, we did have a couple incidences like in the months before, but every time, like, I came home one day, went to visit my grandmother, and I go and I visit with her and I wash her feet, and she's diabetic, so I trim her toenails, and she's got some dementia and Alzheimer's. But I come back home and I walk into the kitchen and he's just like slumped over on the floor, unresponsive, but like on his knees, but slumped over. And there's like drool coming out of his mouth. So I have no clue what's going on. I'm like, I don't know if he's like had a heart attack, a brain aneurysm. Like, I have no clue. So you don't realize the strength you have until like all that adrenaline kicks in. And I'm like picking him up off the floor, getting him out the door into my car, like driving insanely fast, calling 911 at the same time because I have no clue what's going on. And we get in there and it's a nightmare. And then we figure out that he has overdosed. He was not a drug user. So of course, like they narc
on
him.
prescription medication
Yeah.
and like over the counter
Yeah.
medications like
So
Benadryl and stuff.
he'd started seeing a doctor at the like that was out of that same hospital. And I don't know if it was like the meds they put him on, that because he seemed to go downhill once they started him on those meds. I can't remember if it was like Prozac or Zoloft or something like that. It was something along those lines, and things just went downhill from there. Like definitely was a little bit different, but he was not telling people that he was struggling or anything like that.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, in the back of your mind, like,
and
you
then of course
still
the
wonder, like,
doctors just kept saying,
he could have been waiting for the opportunity to say
yeah.
something, and that day could have been his opportunity
Well, and
to
of course
tell
the
someone.
doctors kept saying that, like, it wasn't a mental health thing, that it was like, they just kept treating it as, like, a drug addict
Like a drug
overdose.
addiction,
Like, yeah.
yeah. They were
No matter how
not.
much I kept trying to voice my concern, they would not.
Yeah.
And then it happened
Yeah, they
again.
treated it like he was someone just trying to recreationally use
Yeah.
drugs and, like,
Like, they treated him like he was just someone
accidentally
getting high.
overdose, but, like, now, like, that was a cry for help,
Yeah.
like, he was.
That are, just I happened to get him being gone. And then and so where did he get these if he wasn't a drug user? Well, between the medicines that the doctor had prescribed and put him on, and then between I have multiple sclerosis, I just had the old prescription, I never threw it away. I can't another one. Like, so these aren't painkillers, like, this is not.
It wasn't
Yeah,
fentanyl or,
this is
like,
not like he wasn't
heroin.
going out and getting street drugs. He just found whatever he could find in the house and took, and then, of course, they're blowing me off about the mental health thing and that it was an attempt. So I have no choice. I mean, my hands are tied. And of course, it took him a while to recover from that. Like, he couldn't feed himself, things like that. It was terrifying. And then later on that year in the fall, there was another incident, almost the same thing. I try to wake him up. He's not waking up. I mean, he is breathing, but it seems off. And I noticed the drool on his mouth. And I was like, oh, like something's not right. So I call 911. And again, I had to fight and argue in the ER as he was coming in off the ambulance, like telling them, like, because they kept Narcaning him. I'm like, no, this is an attempt. This is like, he needs help. There's something wrong. There's something going on. And they didn't want to do any psych stuff. And like, I had to fight, and people were getting mad. Like, the one doctor was like going to drag me out of the room, but they didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to hear that that was what was going on. So of course, again, he's in a situation where he's bad again, and for a few days, like, can't really function right, can't really feed himself. His mental functioning is definitely off from this, but he's not a child. Your hands are tied. Like, you can't,
Yeah.
there's not a lot, like, even when you're, like, even doing all of that, like throwing a fit and arguing, and like, I mean, there was like nothing I could do other than do what I did and try to get somebody to listen to me.
Well, and, he had told them, like, "I just wanted to sleep,"
Yeah.
like it was an accidental overdose, like, I took too many Benadryls and I took a Valium because I haven't been sleeping well, and they just took that at face value and said, "Okay, yeah," like.
Which is absolutely insane to me that, like, this is the second time you saw this person and they're telling you that, like, oh, this was an accident. I was just trying to sleep because I haven't been, like, you know what I mean? Like, within, like, it was all that all happened. It was not like these were years apart incidences. And then that winter,
Yeah. And then, like, after when we were going through the house and, like, going through things, like, we found all of these, like, bills and things that had never been paid and all of these things, like, obviously he was having, really struggling and things were compounding over a period of time and he wasn't letting anybody know and, like, lost his job and, like, so it's like all of these things, compounding, and then, like, at that point you feel hopeless and you feel helpless and, like, don't know what to do. But he never talked to anybody about it or us know. Like, we had no idea until, after it happened.
yeah, until you find.
And then, like, then that, like, thought just always lingers with me. It sits with me, like, he was there that day, like, very shortly before this happened, and like, this could have been his opportunity to open up and say something to someone.
And
And I wouldn't hear it
I think
because I was closed off.
one of the one of the even harder parts for me was that, like, he'd been going like this, like, this stuff had went on, and he just, like, I don't know how to explain it other than he just wasn't right, but, like, he never said, and, like, it didn't matter how much you poked, prodded, like, it didn't matter, and I wanted him to, like, visit with some friends.
Yeah.
He was telling me that he was, and he was lying about that. He told me, like, his brother was like, he had made plans, his brother was gonna come visit him, like, I was trying to get him, like, he's not, I can tell something's off. We've already had these 2 incidents. And I had talked to the peer recovery person at the hospital and was like, is there any way, does anyone provide like lock boxes for you to put your medication in? Because at that point, like, things were pretty tight. There was like with him, like, 'cause he was started out like missing a lot of work, and I wasn't
Yeah.
thinking that he was missing work.
Yeah.
Or I would come home from work and he was on second shift, like he should have been at work. So, but that wasn't something they provided, because I talked to them and was like, I need to come up with a plan where like I can, if I've got medicine or whatever from the doctor, like we live in the same house, he's an adult, like, putting it up, in a place where kids aren't going to get to, it's one thing, but you can't really do that from an adult, like unless I were to buy something with some sort of lock and key and was able to keep the key from him without me also losing it. But they didn't provide that. So I worked out a hiding space with that recovery coach actually at the hospital, talked about and came up with like a hiding place where I could start hiding my medicine. And that's what I did. And I didn't know that he had found that hiding space. And then, so I'm trying to get him to like engage with some of his friends. I come home and he has like a bag packed and he says he's going to go hang out with his friends for the weekend. And I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking like he needs this so bad.
Yeah. Like this is a good thing. Like he's isolated himself. He feels lonely. Like he just needs to like he had moved from like the place that he lived where all of his friends were.
Right.
Yeah. And so like he needs to re-engage with his friends. Like maybe that will help get him out of this funk, and you know, maybe he'll open up to them.
Yeah. And of course, the roads were really, really bad. And he had gotten pulled over, like, he needed something on the car he needed, and where we lived, like, we had, like, the worst winters, so he said he was walking to the end of the road and his friends were gonna pick him up there. That's where we live, that's perfectly reasonable to do. So I think that was on Friday? I think that was Friday. Well,
Yeah.
we didn't know, but he didn't go with any friends. We didn't figure that out. Well, even after I called the police, by the time Sunday came around and I hadn't heard from him, and the police came to the house and told me, like, yeah, his cell phone pinged off the
Yeah,
tower.
they did an emergency ping to his cell phone to try to locate him because he's like a missing person at that point.
Yeah.
Like nobody's heard from him, he hasn't contacted anybody, she can't get a hold of him.
I'm, like, driving around to the local gas stations, asking if anybody's seen him, and, like, whether you, like, really shouldn't be out driving it, like, so, and when they tell me that, I'm thinking, "Okay," like, I mean, if his cell phone pinged, they're like, he must have, but to this day, like, we don't know what happened between Friday and Sunday. Like, I
I
just
don't
can't
know.
figure out if he didn't go anywhere. How did his cell phone ping from back home? I don't know. But Sunday, like, I was getting a hold of his brother. His brother drove up from where he lived, and I told him, what happened. And the cops kind of looked around outside because at that point, like, I don't know iPhone, but I'm trying to figure it out. And like, I know you can hack in and like find a location on your phone.
Yeah, like Find My Phone or
So like,
whatever.
I have the police at the house. We're doing this, and I'm like, look, like this is like you're telling me like his cell phone's pinging off of that county, and that's where he's at. But like this iPhone thing is saying that he's like basically at the neighbors. Like,
Yeah, which I mean, I think it's a little hard to get an accurate ping in West Virginia. It's like, yeah, and then we have
so they
such dispersed towers. Like,
said it could be the storm making it
yeah,
show up that way because it was like extremely bad. But they left. It still didn't sit right with me. So I'm working with his brother, talking to his brother. His brother drives up. I try to lay down to get some sleep finally. His brother, because I had went out looking around, and also where we live, you don't want to be going around in the middle of the night going through people's property. Not
yeah.
alone and not in a blizzard either.
Well, and it's like rural, it's pitch black, it's freezing cold, there's snow. Like it's not you're not going to find somebody on foot like
And, he's found pretty much the neighbors, but nobody. It's like an old abandoned house. Like
yeah.
literally we share yards, and there and he was dead and
Frozen,
like
like hypothermia. You
like
know, he succumbed to hypothermia.
I think I went into shock because they just I remember I wasn't really dressed in anything warm. I think I just had on like a sweater and like a pair of sweatpants because I heard the screams from his brother, and when I heard the screams, like you just know those screams, like there's not nothing
Yeah.
so, and he was covered in so much snow that when I got to his brother, I remember asking like, "Where's he at? Where is he at? Where is he at?" Because you couldn't see him. It was just like a little bit of his face was poking out. And the only thing I really remember from that is there was like I think I remember a bunch of lights, and I think it was like police and firefighters that just collapsed, and they were like picking me up or like lifting me up, and you had to like walk over this steep hill and put me in an ambulance. And I remember people in the ambulance, like, I don't remember really what they said. I just remember they were like trying to talk to me and I don't think I could talk. I don't think I could say anything. Like, I don't think I was, could, I don't know. It was weird. I don't know how to describe it. Like, you're there, but you're not there. So I guess that's like shock or whatever. And I remember at one point, like, I just kept like saying, like, call my dad, like, call my dad, call my dad, call my dad, call my dad. And I was able to tell them my dad's phone number, but I think that was like all I was able to say. And of course, my dad, Mark, shows up. And I don't know how long I was in the back of that ambulance. I think it was hours because I do remember they kept wanting to take me to the hospital and I was saying no. And I can remember like crosstalk and hearing them talk to my dad, telling my dad I think they were talking about how bad of shock I was in and that I needed to go to the hospital and they needed to find a way to get me to go, like not stop saying no.
Yeah.
And I remember hearing all of the police and stuff outside. I remember like this sound in their voices when they started talking about like they had to call in a team to dig him out of the ground because he was froze to the ground. So like then there was like this extra layer of guilt, like not knowing what exactly went down that whole weekend,
Right.
thinking like he laid there in your own freaking yard,
Yeah, like
pretty much.
at the property line, like in the woods, like he was back
Freezing
there
to
the
death,
whole
dying
time,
in a
like, and
blizzard while
you had no idea.
yeah, while I was like sleeping in a warm made it so much I don't know why, but like I just like ho I couldn't fathom like that happened. So it and I don't know if like different ways that it happens or people find if it's different, but that made it it can't
Yeah,
get much worse.
well, and it's
So
also like
it's like
it's also like a very uncommon like mechanism that like people don't do that like often at like less than 2%, you know, or even less than that would
handle it that way.
do it that
Yeah.
way, right? Like most of the time it's a GSW or it's a, you know, a self-inflicted wound or it's, you know, a jump or something.
Yeah.
But like to like go down and lay outside in inclement weather and the freezing cold and you know pass from that, which I think he did have some, you know, sedatives in his system, so he had taken pills again. Yeah, so I don't know, you know, if he had gone wandered out there.
The snow was and the weather was so bad and it was blowing so hard that, like, I was, like, making sure the cops were searching the
Yeah,
street, and they didn't even find it.
didn't see him.
No.
So, you know, I don't know if he had taken some things and then like, you know, left and then like got confused and went back there and laid down, or if he intentionally went back there and laid down. And then, you know, as you become hypothermic, like not only are there medications in your system that can alter your mental status, but like hypothermia itself then also causes confusion and altered mental status and more sedation. So like, you know, maybe it started, you know, I don't know. You don't know what was going through his mind at the time.
Yeah, and it leaves you with so many
Unanswered questions, right? Like there are no answers and there never will be. Like
that's a very hard part too because, like, you're not gonna get the end no matter you sit and dissect everything nonstop trying to figure it out. Like, what happened? What were they thinking? Or where did they actually go? Did their phone really ping off this tower in this county? They said it did. Like, you're just trying to figure you're constantly, like, it doesn't stop. Like, the world goes on for everybody else, like nothing happened, but for you, it's like walking around in dirty Jello and, like, mentally, you're just not present at all, no matter how functioning you look to other people, you're not. So, before we end today's little episode, I will say that throughout our relationship, he did end up coming to Christ before
He
all of this
did.
happened. He was a very new Christian. I'm not here to pick one side or the other about whether
I
self-determination.
there is nothing explicit in the Bible that suggests that, this results in
I definitely
damnation.
don't advocate for it at all,
No, like,
but
gosh, that's
in any
awful that someone feels so
yeah,
helpless that that's the
they think
answer.
that's the only
Like,
thing
that will make the world better.
because the pain you have to be in
Yeah.
after having going through that, like, the pain you have to be in to really be right there on that edge is it's I don't even have words
And
for it.
to go through with it,
Yeah.
like, I think most of us have experienced, like, times in our life that we've thought, like, well, maybe everyone else would be better off without me. Maybe, maybe there is no point in doing this, but, like,
There's
that's a whole different story than, like, being to the point where you can actually carry it out, and,
yeah.
that's a big difference, and it wasn't done in, like, this quick, precipitous manner.
And then on the other side of it, you are, like, beating yourself up because 'cause you're like, "If I'd have just why didn't I go look sooner?" But, like, who would think? Like, I just like, who would think that that was, like, reasonable? Like, I should just maybe my person decided to just go terminate themselves in the blizzard and in the property next door in the wood line. Oh,
Right. Well, and,
but you really beat yourself up because you're
y
just like, "Why didn't I?" Like, or
yeah,
maybe I should have went outside to play in the snow or, like, anything.
yeah, like,
But it but, like, nobody was going outside. We were having, like,
no. Yeah, they were record low temperatures, like, negative temp.
that time, like, I held sole responsibility on myself. Like, it was my fault. There was all these things that I could have done that I didn't do, but thinking back about it, like, those weren't it wasn't a rational that would not have been, like, a logical thought to think,
Right.
"I need to go."
Right. Well, he said, he was going to hang out with friends. He was going to spend the weekend there. He had a bag packed. Like, there was nothing. You had already been telling him he should spend some time with his friends and, like, relax and take some time to step away from, like, all the negative, the situation that's going on in life.
Stress.
And yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and, like, so there's no reason to think, like, that wasn't the case, like, and even, like, not being able to get a hold of him, like, okay, you told him to spend some time away with friends, like, he's not gonna be attached to his phone,
Right.
and respond immediately, like,
Good friend.
yeah. Like, he's trying to unwind and not, like he's not gonna be, stuck on his phone texting.
And he was such, like, a peaceful, kind person, like, what he did was so cruel to himself
Right, and he would
and
never be that cruel to any person
anybody.
or thing.
So, I mean, we still protect anybody who knows stories about us and spiders, like, not happening. But in my house, we still protect jumping spiders because he did. Like, he was so kind to try like, he would pick them up and put them outside.
They do. I spray insecticide because I can't.
So, like, that was hard too because that was a really cruel thing to do to himself. So you wouldn't think, like, he would do that. He would never do anything cruel to another person.
Well, and also knowing
Yeah.
that harmed other people,
Yeah.
not just
Like,
himself, but, like,
that was
that harmed his family, and that harmed you, and that harmed his children, and
yeah.
that harmed, like, so many people were devastated by this, and, like, to think, like, when someone's in that situation, like, of course, in their mind, like, it's wrong, but they think that they're doing other people a favor. They think that they're a burden and that this is the only way that they can make things right and get away from this. Like, so, sometimes it's they think they're doing something that's selfless, like they're doing everybody else a favor, but it's not. And, like, to think that he would ever do something like that and would, cause harm to all of those people that he loves, like, and himself,
Yeah. In
just
his mind, in his head, I've had to learn that, like, that's not what he thought he was doing.
no, what he thought he was doing was being selfless and, like, he was just
He thought he was
baggage. Yeah. That he was a burden and
yeah,
that he was the only way to unburden everybody else is to end things.
and it's wrong.
Yeah.
So I will just leave everybody with this message. If you or anyone you know is having any type of mental health, any suicidal thoughts, help is available. You can call or text 988 anytime. They have official websites. You can chat online. You can chat through text. You can call, when you call 988, it's free, it's confidential, it's available 24/7. They have some options for veterans, they have options for Spanish that I know of, and then you're routed to someone that's available in a crisis center that's supposed to be close to your area, and you're supposed to get a trained counselor to be there for support and conversation, and they can provide you with other connecting resources. And, if you're in an emergency, you can always call 911.
Yeah.
Reach out for help. Don't think you're doing anyone a fine.
And don't think that you're alone.
You feel very alone,
You
but
you know, talk to people, talk to your loved ones, let them know how you're feeling, what's going on, because you're not alone. You're not the only one that's
and
been going through that
if
situation
you
or
don't think you
struggling.
have loved ones or you really don't have loved ones, talk to a stranger through 988.
Yeah,
Like, call them, you can text the 988 number, you can get online, just call someone, even if you think you have no one, even if you have to call a stranger. I promise you they're doing that job because they care.
right.
So, that's all we have for now.
See you guys next time.
To God alone be the glory, forever and ever. Amen. We all wear the masks, we all hide the scars, searching through the dark, trying to find who we are. If people have to hide their story, they'll never ask for help. This is where the outcast rise, through the grace of Jesus Christ. We are not our failures, we are not our shame. We are sons and daughters, He calls us each by name. Hope begins when the truth is spoken. Grace walks in where the silence is broken. This is where the Holy Spirit breaks our shame. Welcome to the life we hide, where faith meets the fight inside. No more running, no disguise. Step beyond the life we hide. This is where the woman at the well steps into His light. Some stories are whispered, some stories are buried, some stories are waiting to finally breathe. Every chain has met a key, every captive can be free, every scar can tell his story, every life can bear His glory. This is where fear loses its name, this is where grace rewrites the story. This is the life we hide. This is where the whore at the well finds living water again. Truth isn't always pretty, healing isn't always quiet, faith isn't always easy, but none of us we're meant to hide. This is the life we hide. Every scar has a story, every story has a purpose, every purpose begins when someone tells the truth. The life we hide. Amazing grace still reaches farther, mercy still calls the broken home. No perfect people, no perfect stories, only a perfect Savior. The life we hide. We've all been broken, we've all worn masks, we've all searched for hope in places it couldn't last. But healing begins the moment we stop hiding. Welcome to the life we hide. God, you know I'm a dumbass. You're gonna have to spell it out for me.